Hey guys, how's everybody doing today? Thank you so much for watching Signs and Wonders. I hope you guys are all well and staying safe. I would like to thank all my Patreons. I'd like to thank everyone who's helped me with PayPal and everything over the last few months. You guys are awesome. Thank you so very much. God bless you all. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you're new here, please subscribe. And yeah, you guys stay safe, and we'll see you in the next one. The panic of 2020. I believe that's what people are going to call this years from now. The panic of 2020. I think fear and hysteria have thrown this world into chaos more than anything. Oil for the first time in history dropped to negative $24 a barrel. They were actually paying people to take it away. The economies of the world are reeling, and there's no telling what the next few years hold for us, but experts say it's not very good and it won't be easy. 2 weeks of coronavirus shutdown were enough to hit Air France with an €815 million first quarter operating loss. The airline group said on Thursday that predicting demand could take several years to recover.
Well, let's speak to our business editor, Stephen Carroll. Stephen, these figures only cover the period until the end of March, but the picture at Air France is very grim indeed.
It sure is. As you say, the figure's only covering until the end of March, but passenger number is still down by 20% in the first 3 months of this year, as those lockdown measures were coming into place in France and elsewhere in the world in the middle of March. Air France doesn't see that picture getting much better for the rest of the year. In fact, it says that in those first 3 months, around €500 million was wiped off its operating revenue or its operating profits as a result of the shutdown in March. It says that in the current period until the end of June, it's grounded 95% of its flights, and for the period from July to September, it only expects to operate around 20% of its flight schedule. So it will be a long road back to recovery for Air France. The CEO of Air France KLM, Ben Smith, saying that they have organised a meeting with unions for June to discuss staff cuts. Those are expected to be big staff cuts. If you were to think about the airline British Airways, they're cutting 12,000 staff members. No indication yet of how many jobs may be affected at Air France.
So you all know the verse in Matthew 24, nation shall rise against nation. While some individual states have already filed suits against China, the administration of US President Donald Trump is reportedly considering measures against China for its handling of the coronavirus pandemic. Trump's position is that China could have done more to warn and protect the world from the pandemic. Such measures could worsen already strained relations between Washington and Beijing.
President Donald Trump is reportedly looking for ways to retaliate against Beijing for the deadly virus that emanated from China.
They could have stopped it, but they didn't. It's something that is going to have to be dealt with. We're going to have to see.
Mr. President.
White House managers are said to be meeting to discuss options that, according to the Washington Post, include a lawsuit seeking damages or one of the president's preferred penalties, new tariffs. On Wall Street, stocks plunged over tariff fears. There's little doubt the virus began in China's Wuhan province.
And by not closing down Wuhan early enough, meant that the disease would spread, and it did spread all across the world. That said, this is not a time for asking for compensation or for putting punitive economic steps on any one country. This is a time where our scientists need to work together.
The global pandemic has turned a complex relationship between two world powers into a simple one, outright rivalry.
This is the president who's casting it around for scapegoats, so suddenly he's angry.
In the last video, we talked a bit about hyperinflation in the end times. In the Bible, in Revelation 6:6, we read, "And I heard what seemed to be a voice in the midst of 4 living creatures, saying, a quart of wheat for a denarius, and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius, and do not harm the oil and the wine." So what's the main cause of hyperinflation? A sudden crash of the economy. 3 million new jobless claims expected in the United States this week alone.
This morning, as unemployment numbers soar across the country, COVID-19 is also changing how people find a career.
When would you be available to start?
Companies in several states are holding drive-through job fairs. People looking for employment at this security firm near Los Angeles register online and pull up to a designated parking spot.
You interview either standing or in your car, and you can get an offer on the spot.
The new approach comes as job losses reach new highs. Payroll company ADP says the private sector slashed a record 20 million jobs between March and April. The biggest job losses were in transportation, construction, and services and hospitality. A report out this morning is expected to show another 3 million Americans filed for unemployment benefits last week, bringing the total to 33 million since March. And
Nearly 8 million people in Sudan's capital are having a hard time getting food. The country's facing an economic crisis. Stocking up for the month has been hard for many, especially for families who rely on a day-to-day income.
It's time to prepare the evening iftar meal, but Suad and her daughters are in no rush. There's not a lot to be cooked. Suad says she wasn't able to stock up on food before Sudan's capital Khartoum went into lockdown 2 weeks ago. And while people are allowed to shop for essential needs during a 7-hour window, she says she doesn't have enough money to buy everything she needs.
Things have become very expensive. The prices of oil, flour and sugar have all gone up, and it's expensive to even get to the market. We can't afford many things, especially in bulk these days. We manage to have food to break our fast, but sometimes we go to bed without a full dinner before the next day's fast.
The hike in market prices has been more difficult to bear since her husband stopped working. A daily laborer, he says since the lockdown was imposed, no one has called him to offer work.
Before the lockdown, I would earn about 1,000 or 1,500 pounds a week by doing construction in different parts of Khartoum. But now there is no public transport, so I can't go and look for work, and no one wants to hire people because of the virus.
Also in Matthew 24, we read, in the end times there will be famines, among other things. And now they're saying the global food supply is on a razor's edge. Just one more tiny thing, like a seasonal crop failure or something, could push the world's food supplies right over the edge.
It was one of the most striking signs a crisis was unfolding. On one side of the chain, farmers' heartbreak as harvests never left the farm. On the other, supermarket shelves stripped of essential supplies. In a matter of weeks, the coronavirus had exposed the fragility of our global food system, a system that survives on a razor's edge. COVID-19 won't be the first or the last crisis that the world faces, but is it the wake-up call needed to reform the way food gets from farm to fork?
And as if all this isn't enough, we're also seeing biblical-like plagues across the world. I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard about or are aware of the massive plagues of locusts attacking our food crops around the world, with Africa being hit the hardest.
Well, it's a swarm of enormous proportions. Desert locusts are eating their way across large parts of East Africa, and it's the worst outbreak some countries there have seen in 70 years. Now,
they eat and destroy everything on their way. One swarm measured 60 kilometers long and 40 kilometers wide. Hundreds of thousands of acres of crops destroyed. People fight back with whatever means they have.
We are more than 200 herders here, and we all depend on this land for grazing. Now it will be disastrous if we all perish without getting any help.
The swarms came from Yemen, then down from the Red Sea to the Horn of Africa. The unusual warm temperatures off the coast are partly to blame.
So if these locusts weren't bad enough, we're now being attacked by gigantic Asian hornets. That's right.
They've been described as hornets from hell, and with good reason. The giant Asian hornet is about the size of a matchbox. Its sting can penetrate a beekeeper's suit, and they kill around 50 people a year in Japan. In December, the Washington State Department of Agriculture verified 2 sightings of the hornet. Reports of honeybee colonies being destroyed soon followed.
They're one of the largest hornets that we have on the planet. And so that's what makes them so unusual and makes them so striking to people. They do not occur here.
It's thought the hornets were either deliberately released or arrived as stowaways on international cargo. They become active in the spring, and scientists say just 15 of these giants can destroy an entire colony of 30,000 bees in hours. Their habit of devouring native honeybees is now a real concern.
Our biggest fear is that it will actually impact small beekeepers and maybe drive them out of business and raise costs for larger beekeepers. It's just something we don't want to see happen.
Plans are now in place to begin trapping and killing the hornets before they establish themselves as a dangerous invasive species.
How ironic is it that all these migrants that we shun, that we build walls to keep out, who we're supposed to love with open arms as Christians? I'm not saying that we're supposed to, let any psychopath into your country, but the Bible and Christianity is all about love. I mean, the core message of the gospel, right, is to love. So, and to love God and to love your neighbor as you want to be loved. So I just find it ironic that these migrant workers majority of them are the ones on the front line protecting us from COVID-19. It's like when we need these people for the worst, dirtiest jobs that we don't want to do, it's like, come on in, but when we're doing good and we're not in a pandemic, it's like, let's build a giant wall and keep these people out.
This is what home looks like for 200,000 foreign workers who live in government-licensed dormitories. Migrants account for 85% of all COVID-19 cases here. Al Jazeera spoke on the phone to a migrant worker living in one of the dormitories. He asked not to be identified for fear of being sacked.
19 people together, all the people together, 150 people use the one toilet.
He's tested negative, but still worries about contracting the virus.
My near room, all people affected already. My near room had four room affected, used to one toilet, one washroom, like that.
An academic in New Zealand who's done research on migrant workers in Singapore says the inability to maintain physical distancing can cause a worker's health to suffer.
Workers are very well aware of the kinds of behaviors they need to practice. It is simply that structurally they are unable to practice those behaviors. There is a great deal of anxiety and fear that the workers express.
Thousands of healthy or recovered workers have been moved to floating hotels or military barracks to curb the spread of the coronavirus.
Another thing I find ironic is the fact they say COVID-19 was basically caused by our gluttony. How human beings just stuff our face with every living creature that moves on the planet Earth. Well, not every human, obviously, but you know what I mean. Like, look at all the fast food restaurants we have in the West, and we get a horrible virus transmitted from an animal, and now they're saying that animals might be our savior.
Now, scientists in Belgium are hoping a 4-year-old eyelash-batting llama called Winter could be key to finding a coronavirus cure. The New York Times explains that llamas produce 2 types of antibodies as opposed to 1 in humans. Winter's acute antibodies have successfully fought off SARS and MERS viruses, according to researchers. And these same antibodies also fought off the new virus causing COVID-19. Researchers say it's still early stages, but they're hoping these results could one day lead to a preventative cure.
And finally, guys, I'd like to thank and I'd like to pray for all the healthcare workers like nurses and doctors and everyone who's on the front lines every day risking their own lives to help others. This extra clip is dedicated to you guys. Thank you. God bless. God bless you all and your families. If you guys are new here, please subscribe and stay safe out there, guys.
They are the heroes across this country, the nurses. Brittany Prevost caring for newborns during this pandemic at Our Lady of Lourdes Hospital in Lafayette, Louisiana. When she heard one of her patients, Abby Bordelon, tested positive for COVID-19 and was unable to be with her newborn baby boy, Remy, that nurse knew what she had to do.
I felt like I just needed to sit there with him and, just love on him because he hasn't really had that.
Nurse Brittany caring for Remy, born healthy without the virus, knowing that new mom would not be able to see her baby. So the nurse wrote the mother a letter.
I cried sad tears for you because I couldn't even imagine how hard it must be for you. I cried sad tears for him because he has not gotten to love on his mommy. I cried happy tears because out of all of this craziness, he is a beautiful, healthy baby boy.
A tender exchange of words during a crisis, what nurses do every day.
I want you to know that he was loved today and that I treated him as he was my own. Even though you aren't able to be with him at this time, he is being loved on your behalf.
Tonight, we're happy to report that new mom Abby and baby Remy are home and doing well.